The metal doors of the council chamber slid open with a soft hiss. Commander Lisa Kane walked inside, her black uniform crisp and clean. Her boots clicked against the smooth floor as she moved toward the center of the room. Around her, 12 different alien species sat in their floating chairs, watching her with eyes that glowed, blinked, or stared without emotion. The chamber was huge. Its walls curved up into a dome that showed the stars outside. Lisa could see the planet below through the clear floor. This neutral station orbited Kepler 442b, a world that belonged to no one. It was the perfect place for meetings between enemies. Lisa stopped in the center of the room. She looked up at the alien council members. Some had blue skin that sparkled like crystals. Others looked like giant insects with too many arms. A few appeared almost human, except for their silver eyes and pointed ears. All of them were old. All of them were powerful. All of them thought humans were nothing more than troublesome children. High Commander Veltar spoke first. His voice came from a device around his neck because his people communicated through colors on their skin. "Human female," he said. "You have been summoned to hear the will of the Zephyrian Empire." Lisa said nothing. She had been trained for this moment. Earth's best diplomats had prepared her for every possible situation, but they had also told her that this meeting would probably be her last. Veltar continued. "Your species has spread across 17 star systems in only 200 years. This is unacceptable. You multiply too quickly. You take resources without permission. You build colonies where you do not belong." Another alien spoke. This one looked like a giant bird with 4 wings. "The galaxy has rules, human. Your people break these rules every day. You are young and stupid. You do not understand the way things work." Lisa remained silent. She knew they wanted her to argue. They wanted her to beg or make excuses. That was what most species did when faced with the might of the Zephyrian Empire. But Lisa Kane was not most people. Veltar raised one of his forearms. "The Zephyrian Empire has ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. We have brought peace to over 1 million worlds. We have ended wars between species that had fought for centuries. We are the law here." The crystalline alien skin changed colors as he spoke. Lisa had studied their language. The colors meant he was angry but also amused. He thought this was funny. "Therefore," Veltar said, "we offer humanity one choice. Leave all star systems except your home system of Sol. Abandon your colonies. Return to your single world. Do this and you may live in peace, and if we refuse?" Lisa asked. Her voice was calm and steady. The bird-like alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "Then we will remove you. We have 10,000 warships. You have perhaps 200. We have weapons that can crack planets. You have metal tubes that shoot fire. There is no choice here, human. Only the illusion of choice." Lisa nodded slowly. She had expected this. Earth's intelligence services had told her the aliens would demand complete surrender. They had also told her that the Zephyrian Empire had never lost a war, not once in 3,000 years. "I need to ask you something," Lisa said. "How many of your ships have you lost in battle over the past 1,000 years?" Veltar's skin shifted to different colors. Confusion, then mild interest. "Very few. Perhaps a dozen ships in the last 5 centuries. We are too advanced to suffer significant losses." "How many of your soldiers have died in combat?" "Combat deaths are rare among civilized species," the bird alien said. "When one side clearly outmatches the other, surrender follows quickly. Total war casualties in the past millennium number perhaps 10,000 across all our military forces." Lisa smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. 10,000 in 1,000 years. Interesting. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small device. Several aliens tensed, but she simply placed it on the floor and stepped back. A hologram appeared showing the image of a middle-aged man in an admiral's uniform. "This is Admiral Jack Morrison, commander of Earth's Defense Forces," Lisa said. "Admiral, please tell the Council about our military casualties." The hologram spoke. "Last month alone, we lost 15,000 soldiers in training accidents. Not combat, training. Our people die learning how to fight because we train them in real battle conditions." The aliens looked at each other. Some made sounds of confusion. Morrison continued. "In the past year, we have lost over 200,000 military personnel. This includes deaths from equipment failures, training exercises, and what you might call normal military operations." Veltar's skin turned a dark purple. In their color language, this meant deep confusion, mixed with the beginning of concern. Lisa picked up the device and put it away. My people wanted me to deliver a message. It is very simple. You have until sunset on your homeworld to reconsider your demands. We do not want war, but we will not surrender what we have built. The chamber erupted in sounds that might have been laughter from 12 different species. Veltar's skin went through several color changes before settling on bright yellow. Pure amusement. Human female, he said. You have just threatened an empire that spans half the galaxy. Your entire species could not defeat a single one of our battle groups. This is not bravery. This is madness. Lisa turned to leave. As she walked toward the door, she spoke without looking back. You think you know what humans are capable of. You have studied our history. You have seen our wars, but you have only seen us fight each other. She stopped at the door and turned around. You have never seen what happens when humanity fights for survival. You have never seen what we do when someone threatens to take everything from us. The door opened and Lisa walked out. Behind her, the alien council sat in stunned silence for several moments. Finally, the bird-like alien spoke. Should we be concerned about her threats? Veltar's skin returned to its normal blue color. No, fear makes young species say foolish things. Begin preparations for the cleansing operation. We will show them what happens when children try to threaten their elders. But as the council members filed out of the chamber, none of them noticed that the human's small device had recorded everything, and none of them knew that Admiral Morrison was already giving orders that would change the galaxy forever. On distant Earth, Morrison turned to his aide, Lieutenant Maya Torres. Signal all defense fleets. Activate Protocol 7. Maya hesitated. Sir, Protocol 7 has never been tested in actual combat. Morrison looked at the stars through his office window. They think they know us, Maya. They think they understand what humans will do when cornered. They are about to learn the difference between civilization and survival. The Zephyrian war fleet gathered in the empty space between stars. 10,000 ships of different sizes and shapes hung in the darkness like metal insects. The smallest ships were destroyers, each one larger than anything humans had ever built. The largest were planet killers, weapons designed to crack worlds open like eggs. Fleet Admiral Kethnol stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. The ship was 5 miles long and carried enough firepower to level a continent. Through the viewing windows, he could see the rest of his armada stretching into the distance. It was the largest military force assembled in over a century. Admiral, his aide approached him. We have received updated intelligence on human military strength. Kethnol looked at the report on his screen. 237 combat vessels, primitive fusion drives, kinetic weapons, and basic energy shields. He made a sound that passed for laughter among his people. This will not even qualify as a proper battle. The aide nodded. Our war computers estimate total victory within 18 hours. Human casualties projected at 100%. Our losses projected at 0. Kethnol touched the communication panel. All ships prepare for jump to the Proxima Centauri system. We will begin with their oldest colony. When we are finished there, the other human worlds will surrender without resistance. 3,000 light-years away, on the human colony of New Texas, Farmer Steve Baker was loading ammunition into his truck. The evacuation order had come 6 hours ago, but Steve was not leaving. Neither were most of his neighbors. New Texas was not like the older human colonies. It had been settled by people who wanted to live simple lives far from Earth's crowded cities. They grew food, raised animals, and minded their own business. They also happened to be some of the best shots in human space because on New Texas everyone hunted. Steve's wife Helen came out of their house carrying a bag of medical supplies. The transport ships are leaving in 2 hours, she said. We could still go. Steve shook his head. And go where? If we run from this one, we'll just have to run from the next one. Every colony that falls makes it easier for them to take the rest. Helen looked at their farm. They had spent 15 years building this place. They had planted every tree, dug every well, built every fence with their own hands. I know, she said quietly. I just wanted to hear you say it. Other families were making the same choice across the colony. Captain Bobby Chen, who had served in Earth's military before becoming a farmer, was organizing the defense. He had set up his command post in the town hall. Listen up, Chen called to the crowd of volunteers. These aliens think we're just farmers and shopkeepers. They think we'll run or hide or give up easy. They don't know that every adult on this colony served at least 2 years in the military. The room was filled with men and women of all ages. Some carried hunting rifles. Others had military weapons they had brought from Earth. All of them looked determined. They also don't know, Chen continued, that we've been preparing for this day since we got here. Every building in town has been rigged with charges. Every bridge has been wired to blow. Every fuel depot, every communications tower, every piece of equipment they might want to use. An older woman named Ruth spoke up. What about the children? Already on the transport ships heading for Earth, Chen replied. Along with anyone who wanted to leave. What's left is all volunteers. Meanwhile, on the research station Omega-7, Dr. Amy Collins was working frantically in her laboratory. The station orbited a gas giant in the outer system, far from any normal space routes. It was supposed to be a secret facility, but Amy knew the aliens would find it eventually. Amy had been working on the project for 3 years. It had started as a simple communication system, a way to send messages instantly across vast distances. But after the first alien attacks on human shipping, Amy had turned her research in a different direction. She thought about her brother Danny as she worked. He had been on a trade ship when the aliens attacked it. They had demanded surrender, and when the crew complied, the aliens had killed them anyway. They said it was to send a message about trespassing in their territory. For you, Danny, Amy whispered as she entered the final codes into her computer. They want to send messages? Let's see how they like ours. The system was elegant in its simplicity. It used quantum entanglement to link communication devices across the galaxy. But Amy had modified it. Instead of just carrying voices and data, it could carry something else. Something the aliens had never encountered before. Back in the Zephyrian fleet, Admiral Kethnol gave the order to jump. 10,000 ships vanished in flashes of blue light, reappearing seconds later in the Proxima Centauri system. What they found was not what they expected. The human colony ships were not running. Instead, they had formed a defensive line around the planet. Mining stations had unfolded into weapons platforms. Civilian transports had sprouted missile launchers and energy cannons. This is unusual, Kethnol muttered. Most species flee when they see our fleet. His aide checked the sensors. Admiral, we are detecting massive energy readings from the planet's surface. It appears the humans have militarized their entire infrastructure. Kethnol studied the tactical display. Every human installation was armed. Farms had missile silos hidden in their barns. The orbital elevator had turned into a giant railgun. Even the shopping centers had defensive weapons. They have turned their entire colony into a fortress, he said with something like admiration. Primitive, but impressive. However, it will not matter. Begin the attack. The Zephyrian fleet opened fire. Beams of energy lanced out toward the human ships. The first wave of human defenders died quickly, their small ships no match for alien technology. But then something strange happened. The humans did not retreat. Instead, damaged ships accelerated toward the alien fleet. Human captains, their vessels already dying, aimed their ships at Zephyrian destroyers and activated their engines at full power. Captain Ryan Foster was one of them. His frigate, the UFS Defiant, had lost main power and half its crew. Instead of surrendering or trying to escape, Foster aimed his ship at the nearest alien cruiser. All hands abandon ship, he announced over the intercom. Escape pods away in 30 seconds. But Foster did not abandon ship. He stayed at his controls, guiding the Defiant toward its target. The alien cruiser tried to destroy the approaching human ship, but Foster had shut down everything except engines and life support. There was nothing left to hit. The Defiant struck the alien ship at tremendous speed. Both vessels vanished in a ball of fire and twisted metal. Across the battlefield, other human captains were doing the same thing. Ships that should have surrendered instead became guided missiles. Crews that should have been begging for mercy were instead singing old Earth songs as they died. Admiral Kethnol watched his tactical display with growing confusion. In 3,000 years of warfare, he had never seen anything like this. Civilized species did not waste their lives in hopeless attacks. They surrendered when the situation was impossible. Sir, his aide reported, we have lost 18 ships so far. The humans have lost over half their fleet, but they are not retreating. Kethnol's 3 eyes focused on the display. Are they trying to win? Unknown, sir. Their tactics make no strategic sense. They appear to be trying to inflict maximum damage rather than preserve their forces. On the planet below, Steve Baker watched the battle through his rifle scope. The first alien landing ships were approaching the atmosphere. Soon the real fighting would begin. Helen, he called to his wife. You ready? Helen checked her own weapon and nodded. Let's show these aliens what happens when they pick on farmers. The first alien landing ships touched down in the fields outside New Texas colony. The ships were massive, each one carrying 500 soldiers and enough equipment to level a small city. Steam rose from their hulls as they cooled in the planet's atmosphere. Admiral Kethanol watched from orbit as his ground forces deployed. He expected the human defenders to either surrender or retreat into the wilderness. Instead, his sensors showed them moving closer to the landing zones. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "the humans are advancing toward our landing sites." All of them, Kethanol studied the display. Small groups of humans were moving through the forests and farmland, heading directly for his troops. "How many?" "Approximately 12,000 armed civilians, sir. They appear to be farmers and shopkeepers." Kethanol made the sound his people used for puzzlement. "Civilians do not attack military forces. Are you certain these are not soldiers?" "Bioscans confirm they are ordinary colonists, sir, but they are all armed and moving in coordinated groups." On the ground, Steve Baker led 20 neighbors through the cornfields toward the nearest landing zone. They moved quietly, using farm roads they had traveled their whole lives. Each person carried a rifle and enough ammunition for a long fight. "Remember," Steve whispered to his group, "we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to make them pay for every inch." The aliens had set up a defensive perimeter around their ships. They carried energy weapons that could cut through steel and wore armor that could stop most bullets. But they had never fought an enemy that knew the local terrain better than their own backyard. Steve's group split up, taking positions in the tall corn. They had practiced this many times, using the alien ships in orbit as motivation. When Steve gave the signal, 20 rifles opened fire at once. The alien soldiers were caught completely off guard. They had expected either organized military resistance or complete surrender. They had not expected to be attacked by people who disappeared into cornfields and shot at them from farm buildings. "Contact, contact," an alien squad leader shouted into his radio. "We are under attack by farmers." The human defenders used tactics that no civilized military would consider. They hid in grain silos and shot through the walls. They dug tunnels between buildings and popped up behind alien positions. They used farm equipment as weapons, driving tractors loaded with explosives into alien vehicles. Helen Baker was positioned in the old water tower with a hunting rifle. She had been shooting deer and wild pigs since she was 12 years old. Alien soldiers, despite their advanced armor, were much easier targets than a running deer. She lined up her shot and squeezed the trigger. An alien officer dropped, his energy weapon spinning away into the dust. Helen immediately moved to her second position, a hole she had cut in the grain elevator wall. The aliens tried to adapt. They called in air support from their ships in orbit. Energy beams lanced down from space, turning farm buildings into glass and ash. But every building they destroyed had been evacuated hours earlier. The humans had simply moved to the next position. Captain Bobby Chen watched the battle from his command bunker, built into the root cellar of an old farmhouse. His radio crackled with reports from teams across the colony. Team 7 has disabled another alien transport. Team 12 requests more ammunition. They've been holding the North Bridge for 6 hours. Team 3 reports alien reinforcements landing at Site 4. Chen marked the positions on his map. The aliens had superior weapons and armor, but they were fighting an enemy that treated every building, every field, every fence as part of the battlefield. Meanwhile, in space, Captain Ryan Foster's sacrifice had inspired something unprecedented in galactic warfare. Other human ship captains, seeing their vessels too damaged to fight effectively, began making the same choice Foster had made. Captain Maria Santos commanded the cruiser USS Austin. Her ship had lost main engines and most of its weapons. She could surrender or she could do something that would be remembered. "All hands abandon ship," Santos announced. "Set course for the alien dreadnought. Maximum acceleration." Her crew followed orders without question. They had trained for this moment. As the last escape pod launched, Santos stayed at her controls, guiding the Austin toward the enemy flagship. The alien ship tried to destroy the approaching cruiser, but Santos had angled the Austin's approach perfectly. The ship struck the dreadnought's engine section and both vessels exploded in a fireball visible from the planet below. Admiral Kethanol stared at his tactical display in growing alarm. He had lost 43 ships to human kamikaze attacks. His ground forces were reporting casualties that should not have been possible against primitive humans. "Admiral," His aide approached carefully. Perhaps we should reconsider our approach. These humans fight like no species we have encountered. Kethnol's skin shifted to a dark blue color, indicating deep thought mixed with concern. They are supposed to be civilians, farmers and merchants. Why do they fight like warriors facing extinction? Unknown, sir. Our cultural experts have no explanation for this behavior. On Luna, Earth's moon, General Paul Hayes was preparing for the next phase of the battle. His defense stations had been built into the moon's surface over the past 50 years. They looked like research facilities and mining operations. They were actually the most heavily fortified positions humans had ever constructed. Hayes stood in the main command center, carved deep into the lunar rock. Around him, thousands of technicians and soldiers waited for orders. They all knew what was coming. Earth's orbital defenses could not stop the alien fleet. The moon bases were humanity's last line of defense. General, Colonel Kate Williams approached with a status report. All stations report ready. Antimatter charges are armed and standing by. Hayes nodded. The plan was simple and terrible. When the alien fleet moved to attack Earth, the lunar bases would reveal their true nature. And when they were finally overwhelmed, Hayes would detonate charges that would turn the moon into a weapon. Have we heard from the colonies? Hayes asked. New Texas is still fighting. Proxima Station went dark 6 hours ago, but not before they transmitted their final message. What did they say? Williams played the recording. It was the voice of Station Commander Lisa Park, broadcast on all frequencies as alien ships closed in around her position. This is Proxima Station to all human forces. We are about to be overrun. But we want you to know, we made them pay for it. Every one of these alien ships that passes our wreckage will remember that humans do not die quietly. Station destroyed but not defeated. Park out. The transmission ended with the sound of explosions. Hayes closed his eyes for a moment. Then he opened them and looked at the tactical display showing the approaching alien fleet. Colonel Williams, he said quietly, prepare to show these aliens what humans call a proper goodbye. On New Texas, the battle had been raging for 18 hours. Steve Baker's group had been pushed back to the town center, but they were still fighting. The aliens had superior weapons, but they were learning that humans had something else. They had anger. Every alien soldier who had been killed by a farmer with a hunting rifle made the others more nervous. Every building that exploded when they tried to occupy it made them more cautious. Every human who smiled before detonating a grenade made them more afraid. Steve found Helen in the ruins of their old house. She was wounded but still fighting. Her rifle trained on the street where alien soldiers moved carefully between the destroyed buildings. How are we doing? She asked, not taking her eyes off her target. Steve checked his ammunition. 3 rounds left. We're making them remember us. Helen nodded and squeezed her trigger. Another alien soldier fell. Good enough. Above them, Admiral Kethnol was receiving reports from across the human colonies. Every human world was fighting the same way, not trying to win, but trying to make victory as expensive as possible. For the first time in his long military career, Kethnol began to wonder if victory against these strange humans would be worth the cost. Dr. Amy Collins pressed the final activation key in her laboratory on Omega-7 Station. 3 years of work came down to this moment. The quantum communication network that connected every human ship, station, and colony across the galaxy suddenly carried something new. It started as a simple transmission, a virus designed to infiltrate alien communication systems. But Amy had added something the aliens had never encountered before. Along with the computer code came sounds, human voices, the final words of dying soldiers, the laughter of children, the songs people sang when they knew they were about to die. The transmission spread through the Zephyrian fleet's networks in seconds. Alien communication officers heard human voices speaking in languages they could not understand. But the emotions were clear. Pain, determination, love, sacrifice. Admiral Kethnol stared at his communication screens as they filled with images from the human colonies. He saw farmers fighting alien soldiers with hunting rifles. He watched civilian pilots crashing their ships into his warships. He heard the voices of humans who knew they were going to die but kept fighting anyway. Turn it off, he ordered. We cannot, sir. His communication officer replied. The virus has infected all our systems. We can still send and receive tactical data, but these human voices keep playing. One transmission caught Kethnol's attention. It was the bridge recording from the human ship Austin. Captain Maria Santos at the controls. He watched as she ordered her crew to abandon ship, then stayed behind to guide the vessel into his dreadnought. "Tell my daughter I love her," Santos said to her empty bridge as alien fire tore through her ship. "Tell her we held the line." The recording ended with the explosion that destroyed both ships. Kethnol had fought in dozens of battles across 3 centuries. He had conquered species that fought bravely and species that surrendered quickly, but he had never encountered anything like this. These humans were not trying to win in any traditional sense. They were trying to make themselves remembered. On Luna, General Paul Hayes watched the alien fleet approach Earth. His lunar defense stations had remained hidden until now, appearing to be simple research facilities. But as the enemy ships entered the inner solar system, Hayes gave the order that changed everything. "All stations, reveal weapons. Begin bombardment." Across the moon's surface, harmless-looking buildings split open to reveal massive railguns and missile launchers. Mining facilities transformed into fortress complexes. The aliens suddenly found themselves facing defenses they had not known existed. Hayes stood in his command center, watching the tactical display. "Colonel Williams, a status report." Kate Williams checked her screens. "All stations firing. Enemy fleet taking heavy casualties, but they're adapting quickly. We have maybe 2 hours before they overwhelm our positions. Then we make those 2 hours count." The lunar defense grid opened fire with everything it had. Kinetic projectiles traveling at significant fractions of light speed slammed into alien ships. Nuclear missiles detonated in space, creating brief new suns. The humans had turned their moon into a weapons platform that rivaled anything the aliens had seen. But the Zephyrian Empire had not ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years by being easily defeated. Their ships began systematic bombardment of the lunar installations. Energy beams capable of melting mountains carved through the moon's surface. Hayes watched his defenses fall one by one. Station 7 went silent. Station 12 reported catastrophic damage. Station 3 was completely destroyed by a direct hit from an alien planet-killer beam. "General," Williams said quietly, "Station 5 reports they're about to be overrun. They're requesting permission to activate Protocol 7. Hayes nodded. "Granted." Station 5 vanished in a ball of antimatter fire that consumed 3 alien ships that had moved in too close. The explosion was visible from Earth, a new star that burned for 30 seconds before fading. Across the human colonies, the same pattern was repeating. Every installation that was about to fall activated its final protocol. Humans had turned their entire civilization into a weapon that could only be used once. Captain Bobby Chen, still fighting in the ruins of New Texas, received the transmission from Earth. The message was simple: "Remember them all." Chen looked around at what remained of his town. Most of the buildings were gone. Half his people were dead, but the aliens had paid for every street corner with their own blood. "This is New Texas colony to all human forces," Chen broadcast. "We're going down, but we're taking them with us. Tell Earth we held the line. Tell them we made it count." He nodded to his demolition specialist, a young woman named Sarah who had been the town's electrician before the war. She activated the charges they had placed throughout the colony's infrastructure. New Texas died in a series of explosions that took out the remaining alien ground forces and 3 of their transport ships. But before the colony fell, Chen made one last transmission. "This is what humans do when you threaten our children. This is what happens when you try to take our freedom. Remember us." On the flagship Eternal Dominion, Admiral Kethnol was beginning to understand the true horror of what his empire had started. The humans were not just fighting a war. They were fighting for the right to exist, and they were willing to pay any price for that right. "Casualty report," he demanded. His aide consulted the tactical display. "We have lost over 400 ships, sir. Ground forces have taken 70% casualties. The humans have been completely defeated, but what? Sir, our losses are unprecedented. In 3,000 years of conquest, we have never suffered casualties like this against a primitive species." Kethanol looked at the communication screens, still filled with human voices. He heard children singing lullabies. He heard soldiers reciting poetry as they died. He heard ordinary people saying goodbye to families they would never see again. "They are not primitive," he said quietly. "They are something else entirely." The alien fleet moved toward Earth, but they moved slowly now. Every ship captain knew that the small blue planet ahead held more humans. More people who would fight like demons and die like heroes. On Earth, Admiral Jack Morrison stood in his command center, watching the alien fleet approach. The planet's defenses were nothing compared to what they had seen on Luna. Earth would fall, but it would not fall quietly. Admiral, Lieutenant Maya Torres reported, "We're receiving final transmissions from the colonies. Every human installation has activated Protocol 7 before falling." Morrison nodded. "And the special project?" Dr. Collins confirms her virus has infected the entire alien fleet. Every Zephyrian ship is now broadcasting the voices of our people. Morrison looked at the approaching enemy fleet. They had superior technology, superior numbers, superior firepower, but they had never fought an enemy that turned their entire civilization into a weapon. "Signal all Earth forces," Morrison ordered. "Prepare for final battle. And remember, we're not trying to win. We're trying to make them remember what it costs to fight humanity." In the cold space between Earth and Luna, the alien fleet slowed to a halt. For the first time in 3,000 years, a Zephyrian admiral was afraid to attack. Kethnol stared at the blue planet ahead. He could see the lights of human cities, the orbital stations, the defense platforms. All of it would fall before his fleet's power. But the cost was becoming impossible to calculate. The sun was setting on the Zephyrian homeworld when High Commander Veltar received Admiral Kethnol's final report. The crystalline alien read the casualty numbers 3 times, certain there had been an error in transmission. "Repeat your losses," Veltar commanded. Kethnol's voice came through the quantum communicator, strained and tired. 1,437 ships destroyed, 600,000 ground troops dead, unknown thousands more suffering from what our medical officers are calling psychological warfare trauma. Veltar's skin shifted through several colors, all of them indicating shock and disbelief. "And human losses?" "Complete annihilation of all human military forces. All colonies destroyed. Estimated human casualties 47 million dead." "Then you have achieved victory." There was a long pause before Kethnol replied. "Have we?" Veltar looked at the other members of the High Council. They had gathered in the emergency session chambers, deep beneath the crystal spires of their capital city. For 3,000 years, this chamber had only been used twice before. Both times it had been to plan responses to massive natural disasters. "Explain yourself, Admiral," Veltar ordered. "Sir, the humans have done something to our fleet. Their virus has infected every ship's communication system. We cannot stop it. Every Zephyrian vessel in space is now broadcasting human voices. Dying messages, final words, songs, stories about their families." Another council member, an ancient being from the Kaloth species, spoke up. "This is psychological warfare. Disable the communication systems." "We tried," Kethnol replied. "The virus has integrated itself into our navigation and life support systems. To remove it would require complete system shutdowns. Sir, our crews are affected. Many are refusing to fight. Some are requesting to return home immediately." On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Kethnol looked around at his command crew. Half of them stared at screens showing images from the human colonies. They watched human children saying goodbye to their parents. They heard soldiers singing songs as their ships exploded. They listened to farmers reading poetry while alien troops closed in around them. His tactical officer, a veteran of 50 campaigns, had not spoken in 6 hours. He simply sat at his station, listening to the voice of a human woman reading a bedtime story to someone named Jennifer. "The humans are all dead?" the tactical officer finally said. "Why do their voices keep talking to us?" Kethnol had no answer. On Earth, Commander Lisa Kane stood in what remained of the Terran Federation's command center. Most of the planet's defenses had been destroyed. The orbital stations were gone. The lunar bases were radioactive craters. But Kane was not thinking about defeat. She was thinking about the transmission she had just received from the alien flagship. Admiral Morrison joined her at the communication console. What did they say? Kane played the recording. It was Admiral Kethnol's voice, transmitted on all frequencies so every surviving human could hear it. "This is Admiral Kethnol of the Zephyrian Empire to any remaining human commanders. We wish to discuss terms." Morrison raised an eyebrow. "Terms? They've already won." Kane smiled, but it was not a happy expression. "Have they?" She activated the response channel. "This is Commander Lisa Kane of the Terran Federation. State your terms. Kethanol's response came quickly. Complete withdrawal of all Zephyrian forces from human space. Recognition of human territorial claims. Non-aggression pact between our species. Morrison stared at the communication console. They're surrendering. They won the war and they're surrendering. Kane nodded. They realized something our politicians never understood. You can't defeat an enemy that treats death as just another weapon. They can kill us, but they can't make us submit. On the Zephyrian homeworld, High Commander Veltar was facing a crisis unlike anything in his species' history. Reports were coming in from across the Empire. Alien crew members were refusing orders. Some ships had simply turned around and started flying home without permission. Others had gone completely silent. The virus the humans had created was not just affecting communication systems. It was affecting minds. Species that had never questioned the Empire's authority were suddenly asking why they had attacked people who only wanted to live freely. Sir? Veltar's aide approached carefully. We have received responses to Admiral Kethanol's surrender offer. Every human colony, station, and ship that survived has accepted the terms. But they have added one condition. What condition? They want the galaxy to remember what happened here. They want the story of this war told to every species, on every world. They want everyone to know what humans will do when faced with extinction. Veltar considered this. The alternative was to continue fighting until every last human was dead. But the cost? His empire could not afford to lose another 1,000,000 ships to an enemy that fought like these humans fought. Agreed, he said finally. Let the galaxy know what we learned here. Years later, the story of the human Zephyrian War was taught in schools across 1,000 worlds. Young aliens learned about the species that had defeated an empire not through superior technology or tactics, but through sheer refusal to accept defeat. The war colleges studied human strategy, trying to understand how a primitive species had broken the will of their conquerors. They concluded that humanity's greatest weapon had not been their ships or guns or bombs. It had been their absolute conviction that freedom was worth any price. Commander Lisa Kane eventually became Ambassador Kane, representing humanity in the Galactic Council. She often spoke to young diplomats from various species, teaching them about the war that had changed everything. The aliens thought they knew us, she would say. They had studied our history. They knew we fought each other constantly. They knew we were violent and unpredictable. But they made one crucial mistake. What mistake? The young diplomats would ask. They thought we fought each other because we were savage. They didn't understand that we fought each other because we were free. When someone threatened to take that freedom away, we showed them what humans do when we fight for something that really matters. The Zephyrian Empire still existed, but it was a shadow of its former self. Half their member species had left to form their own governments. The other half demanded representation in decisions that affected their worlds. And throughout the galaxy, when aggressive species threatened peaceful ones, they heard the same warning that Commander Kane had given to the Zephyrian Council. Be careful. You may be threatening humans. Admiral Jack Morrison, now retired, kept a small memorial in his garden on Earth. It listed the names of every human who had died in the war, all 47 million of them. At the bottom, carved in simple letters, were the words that had become humanity's motto. They warned them. By sunset, they lay broken. The memorial had become a place of pilgrimage for species across the galaxy. They came to understand what humans meant when they talked about the price of freedom. And in the quantum communications networks that connected the galaxy, if you knew where to listen, you could still hear the voices. Human voices telling their stories, singing their songs, reading their poetry. The Zephyrian Empire had tried to silence humanity forever. Instead, they had made human voices immortal. The war was over. Humanity had lost every battle and won the war. They had shown the galaxy that some things were worth dying for, and that some enemies could only be defeated by people willing to pay any price for their principles. In the end, that had been enough.